Good morning, everyone. So here we are today. It is Thursday. Earlier, I thought it was Wednesday. I couldn't even tell what day it was. So today, in 7th grade, we are going to be reading Lyddie, chapter 16, which is titled Fever. It starts on page 127. It's only a few pages long, so I'll pause a little bit more, but please don't forget that you guys are supposed to be doing your notes on page 73 and vocab on 74. So you can pause this video at any time that you feel necessary. Okay, let's get started. Taking the money from the bank was like having a rooted tooth yanked from her jaw. Then the most painful part passed. She pressed $2 whole into Mrs. Bedloe's hand before going out on the town to buy Rachel shoes and shawl and to order a dress made for her. Having spent that much, Lyddie squandered 50p more to get the child a beginning reader and a small paper volume of verses that the bookseller recommended. Now you see that word squandered? Squandered in this case means that she feels like she's wasting it. She's spending money on stuff that she doesn't want to spend money on, and she doesn't like the idea that she has to buy a notebook or a book for her sister Rachel to read. Okay? All told, Lyddie had spent more than 2 weeks' wages. There was less than $1 in her pocket, and now left from the princely sum she had withdrawn. She tried not to think on it. It was for Rachel, wasn't it? How could she begrudge the child? The very next day Bridget was slower than ever, and it was all that Lyddie could do to keep from screaming. Time after time she took the shuttle from the girl's clumsy hands, sucked the thread through the bobbin, and threw it into the race. Raging that a machine would stand idle for even a few seconds, Bridget was on the brink of tears all day. So here you go. She's already aggravated that she spent money that she didn't really want to spend, and she's losing money because she's working with a girl that does not work as fast as her, and she has to work not only her looms, but she has to work Bridget, the little Irish girl. So she's very frustrated right now because she spent money and she is not making as much money because she's helping somebody else. At last, Lyddie exploded when once again the girl's inattention caused a snarl and a ruined peace. "You must mind, girl!" and she shouted. "Forget everything else but the loom." So in this sentence, when it says you must mind, girl, mind, normally you think it's like this, but basically Lyddie's yelling at her, pay attention, focus on the machine. And you can see that on the next line where it says, forget everything else but the loom. Okay. Earlier, I forgot a word that I want to talk about, begrudge. When you begrudge somebody, that means you take something away from them. She didn't want to begrudge her little sister. She felt like she has to take care of her, so she didn't want to begrudge her. She didn't want to take something away that she should be doing as someone that's a caregiver. Okay. Forget everything else but the loom. "But I cannot forget," Bridget cried out. "Me mother's sick unto death, and no money for a doctor." "Here." She snatched all the change from her apron pocket and stuffed it into Bridget's. "Here, that's for the doctor. Now mind the machine, eh?" The next few days went better than those before. She coaxed a few words from Rachel and the suggestion of a smile. When she read aloud from the book of verses, Dr. Foster went to Gloucester in a shower of rain. He stepped in a puddle right up to his middle and never went there again. "Well," said Lyddie, "that's mud season in Vermont, eh?" And Rachel smiled. Encouraged, Lyddie tried to make a rhyme for Rachel herself. "Uncle Judah went to Bermuda in the April rain. He sunk in the ooze right up to his snooze and never was heard of again." This time there was no mistaking the smile. Work was going better as well. Bridget was pathetically grateful for her gift. She beat Lyddie to work in the mornings and had 2 of the machines oiled and gleaming before Lyddie even entered the room. Mr. Marsden was very pleased. By Thursday he smiled across the room continually. Lyddie resolved not to glance his way, but she could see without the little rosebud mouth fixed in its prissy bow. How hot the room seemed! Of course it was always hot and steamy, but somehow, perhaps if she hadn't been burning up, she could have kept her head. Now, in this sentence, kept her head means thinking straight. She was so hot she couldn't even think. And remember, that's a working condition. She's having to overwork. She's not getting paid for it. It's so hot in the factory. It is the middle of May. That would be the setting. Perhaps if she hadn't been burning up, she could have kept her head. But she was so hot, so exhausted that Thursday in May. She wasn't prepared. She had no defenses. He stopped her and made her wait until everyone had gone. Ugh. Remember that gave me the creepy feeling in class? Ugh. Just when she felt she must lie down or faint, he stopped her and put both his fat white hands heavily on either sleeve, dragging his weight on her arms. Ugh. He was saying something as well, but her head was pounding and she couldn't make it out. What did he want with her? She had to go. She had to go see Rachel. Her whole body was on fire. She needed a cool cloth for her head, and yet he kept holding on to her. She tried to stare him down, but her eyes were burning in their sockets. Let me go, she wanted to cry. She tried to pull back from him, but he clutched tighter. He was bringing his strange little mouth closer and closer to her fiery face. Ugh. She murmured something about not feeling well, but it made his eyes grow soft and his arm go around her shoulder. Ugh. What made her do it? Illness? Desperation? She'd never know, but she raised her booted foot and stomped her heel down with all her might. That's what I would have done. Probably a couple other things. He gave a cry and, dropping his arms, doubled over, and it was all the time she needed. She stumbled down the stairs and across the yard, nearly falling at last into the door of number 5. He had not tried to follow. Ugh. That just gives me the skivvies. Ugh. She did not go to work the next day or for many days thereafter. You see the word thereafter? That means the following days, the following events did not happen thereafter. Her fever raged, and she was out of her mind with it. Once she realized that someone was putting a cold cloth on her forehead, and she raised her arm to bring it down over her burning eyelids. A tiny cool hand rested on her hot one and stroked it timidly. Somewhere at a great distance she heard a small voice croon, "There, there, there, there." Croon like a sing-song voice, like a lullaby you're singing to a small child or someone that's sick, has a fever, and you're trying to make them feel better. And then her heavy arm was lifted and put back gently under the quilt. Dr. Morse was summoned. Uh-oh. That means she's so bad that they called the doctor to the boarding house. Summoned mean they had to go get him and bring him there. She tried to protest. She couldn't waste money on doctors, but if the words came out at all, they came out too thickly for anyone to understand. The bell rang, but it was far away now. It no longer rang for her. People came in and out of the darkened room. Sometimes Mrs. Bedloe was spooning broth into her, sometimes another of the boarders. Diana was there, and Bridgette, though who would have sent for them? Bridgette had brought some Irish concoction that Mrs. Bedloe seemed to be trying to refuse, but the girl would not leave until she had been allowed to spoon some of it into the patient's mouth. And always, whenever Lyddie swam up the fiery pool out into consciousness, she knew that Rachel was there beside her. "She'll get sick," Lyddie tried to protest. "Make her go away, or move me to the infirmary. She's too frail." But either she never got the words out, or no one could or would understand, for whenever she was right in her mind, Rachel was there. She woke one morning with a start. The bell was clanging, banging away at her dully aching head. She sat up abruptly. The room swooped and dipped about her. More slowly she swung her legs over the side of the bed, and when she tried to stand she fell over like a newborn calf. "Rachel," she called, "help me. I have to get to work." Rachel raised up from the other bed. "You're awake," she cried. "Lyddie, you didn't die." She fell back onto her pillow. "No," she said weakly. "Not yet. We can still hop." Okay, so remember that? That was from earlier in the book when Charlie and her were making a joke about hope and hop. All right, there you go. Make sure you have pages 71 and 74 complete.